Okay. All right. Well, I want to welcome everybody. My name is Rebecca Vieira. I'm the Associate Director of Global Initiatives for PhET Interactive Simulations. Today, basically, we're here to share with you a little bit about the PhET for Schools Access Program, which we're super grateful to be able to offer to eligible schools across the United States. So I've got a few of my colleagues here with me today as well. We will all do, we're going to do a few introductions. First, we want to get to know who you are. If you haven't already done so, I welcome you to type into the chat, where are you from, city or state, or both? What is your role? And if you have something in particular that you hope to learn today, please do share that. I know many of you probably have read the program description. You might have even looked at the application, but there's also a possibility that this may be completely brand new to you. You may not be familiar with PhET. You might be here because one of your math or science teachers asked you to come. But you might also know about PhET. So feel free to just type that in the chat. I'm going to give you just a few seconds here to do that. I can see we've got folks across the pre-K through 12 spectrum. We've got people in Indiana, Idaho, I think I saw Washington, Connecticut, Texas. So I know we're covering all corners of the country. I'll give people a few more moments to share. And it looks like we've got a lot of people who are instructional coaches, tech coordinators, department leads, and teachers as well. So it is fabulous to have you all here. I will keep an eye on the chat. And I've got two colleagues here with me who will also introduce themselves in just a moment. Basically, what I'd like to do is to give a brief overview of what this program is all about, probably in no more than 15 minutes, and then give you all the opportunity to ask your questions so that we can resolve any issues that you might have, any worries that you might have. Okay. So we'll go ahead and move forward, and just, as a reminder for those who might not know, so again, this is all about the PhET for Schools Access Program, which we're able to run for the very first time, thanks in part to a generous grant from Verizon. So this program specifically aims to give eligible districts and schools access to the PhET iOS and Android/Chromebook apps at no cost. So if you're not sure why you want to do that, that's what I'm going to answer for you today. And if you have questions about how that would happen, we'll make sure we answer those questions as well. So today's objectives are for you to get to know who I am and who some of my colleagues are who you might be interacting with if you become part of the program, to also review the benefits of the program, critically to understand the eligibility, to know, are you as your institution eligible, and then to answer any other questions that might not be in that program description, or, there's lots of different nuanced kinds of questions that might come up. So I already mentioned I am the Associate Director of Global Initiatives, but just a tiny bit of background about myself. I taught in the great state of Illinois for 7 years. I was a high school physics, engineering teacher, interdisciplinary science, all that kind of stuff. As you know, teachers do lots and lots of different things, but my deep love is physics. And I've spent the past 10 years supporting teachers primarily in Africa, Latin America, and then previously in the Caribbean. And then I used to work for the American Association of Physics Teachers as well. So physics teaching and science and STEM teaching, those are all my passions. I'm going to go ahead and let Kathy Carter, Dr. Kathy Carter, introduce herself, who's joining me today. Would you like to do that, Kathy?
Yeah, hi, I'm Kathy Carter. I work at PhET. I'm a STEM data and statistics specialist, so I get to help build math and statistics sims. This is my first year out of the classroom. I spent 20 years in the classroom teaching math and statistics at the high school level, and so I'm very excited to be a part of the PhET team, and welcome to all of you here.
Great, thank you, Kathy. And Oliver?
Hi, everybody. Glad that you're all able to join us today. My name's Oliver Nix. I've been with the PhET project for over 12 years. I've got my hands in a lot of different buckets within our project, but primarily for this case, I'm on the design team of both our website and all of our mobile apps. So I'm pretty deeply familiar with all of the possibilities there. Great to meet you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Oliver. And then we have a really large PhET team. We've actually got about 30 people who work at PhET, most of them based in the Colorado area. I'm actually in Washington, D.C., and we have colleagues internationally as well. But so we have a core team of people who develop apps, who develop the PhET sims, the apps, and all that kind of stuff. And then we also have a lot of folks who are pedagogical specialists, particularly in physics, chemistry, and mathematics teaching, that informs our work that we do with teachers and also the simulations. And then new this year, we also have a DEIB advisory board. These are primarily high school teachers and students, university teachers and students. I guess that's four groups of people. We've got students at the high school and at the university level who are helping us to kind of define how do we really develop simulations and supports for teachers that support students in all contexts everywhere. So we've got a great group of people that we work with. Just to give a tiny bit of background about PhET simulations, you may or may not know PhET simulations have been around for 20 years now. And we were founded by Dr. Carl Wyman, who won the Nobel Prize in Physics in 2001, and he generously donated those prize winnings to start PhET simulations. So if you're curious about where the word PhET comes from, it actually originally was Physics Education Technology. And over those 20 years that we've been around, we've expanded beyond physics to include very heavily chemistry, mathematics. We've got a good selection of earth and space science content. And we have a smattering in biology as well. What we do have in biology is really, really fabulous. And I know a lot of biology teachers use it, but we're always expanding, and we know that we've got lots of more work to do. So PhET simulations, if you aren't familiar with them, I like to think about them a little bit like virtual laboratories. So sometimes we don't have the equipment that we need in the classroom. Sometimes we don't have the time that we need in the classroom. There can be lots of different reasons why we want to use simulations, but I think one of the best reasons is because it helps to make it makes very abstract concepts in math and science become very concrete. They're highly visual, and teachers can use them as kind of like, attention getters, helping students to start to ask questions about the scientific and mathematical worlds. They can be used actually like as laboratory experiences. And I've also known teachers to use them as like assessments. I used PhET sims since 2005, since the very early days, and they were a staple of my work. And I'm sure for many of your math and science teachers, that's probably similar. Our whole goal is to make learning STEM more like doing STEM. I think some of the best teachers merge a lot of the hands-on experiences with the PhET simulations. And there's lots of evidence to show that students learn conceptually much, much better using engaging inquiry-based simulations as opposed to, let's say, traditional activities. We have about 160 simulations. We've actually published just a few recently. So if you haven't been to our website, and I wonder if Kathy or Oliver would be so kind as to drop the PhET website link into the chat so people can explore it in case they haven't already. But what makes our simulations, I think, so powerful is that our newest versions, the majority of our simulations are HTML5. So they can be used on computers, tablets, Chromebooks. They're actually so light, they can actually even be sent as a text message and opened on most phones. So they're pretty amazing and powerful, and they were phenomenal for use during COVID. So those are simulations. You can see they can be used in lots of different ways. But what this program is all about, the PhET for School Access program, is about getting access to the apps. Anybody without any kind of an account, without paying anything, can just go to the website and can use the simulations. However, it may be significantly more convenient for students and teachers to access the PhET simulations from an app. So we have an iOS app as well as an Android and a Chrome app. And there's a couple of reasons. One of the reasons why somebody might want to use that is because a teacher doesn't always want to have to send a student a URL or create a QR code and print it out on a worksheet for students to access it. If students have all of the simulations within an app on their device, their school or district issued device, they can go directly to whatever simulation they want directly inside of that app. The other reason why you might want this for your students is because it also allows for offline access. So the app does not need to be connected to the internet. And so if a student has a take-home device, let's say, and perhaps they don't have at-home, internet access, this allows them to be able to continue to do math and science for take-home assignments, homework, et cetera, et cetera. What we're doing through this program is we're providing free access for the 2023-2024 academic year with the hopes that will also be renewed. Normally, this would be a 99-cent per app download. We're basically we're trying our best to get this in the hands of eligible schools, students, districts, et cetera, at no cost. So that's the intent of this program. In terms of the program benefits, the eligible school and/or district would be able to have an unlimited number of downloads on those district or school administered devices for that whole academic year. So I'm just giving an example here. I know some of you may be in small school districts, but if let's say we're talking about LA school district or another very large district, we could be talking about thousands, potentially tens of thousands of apps for free. There's a second benefit to being part of the program, and that is that teachers at those eligible schools and districts can participate in a variety of options. And these are all optional, nothing is required, but we have introductory webinars that introduce people to not only how to access the PhET simulations and how to use them, but the evidence-based practices behind them. So we now have a virtual workshop, which can extend up to 45 hours, and we can provide certificates for that. We also will be offering office hours for people to come in who might want to meet with PhET staff members directly, including specialists in various disciplines, and then also special topics workshops, virtual workshops based on teacher needs. So those are all the benefits of being the program. So as you've heard me say, there are eligibility requirements for schools and districts. So if you've read the program description, you will have seen that this program is only available for public school districts and schools that are eligible for what we call CEB or Title I. If you know what I'm talking about, you probably know whether or not your school is eligible. So to just get a little bit more detailed, first of all, it must be an entity within the United States public education system. This does include public charter schools. Your school or district must have some kind of a district or school administered technology. So what I mean by that is that the devices that are being used at school, at least some of the devices that are being used at school, the ones that we can administer the app to, must be devices owned by the school or the district. So this would not apply, to situations where students are bringing a personal laptop to school, but it would apply in a situation where a school is giving students or lending students a laptop or a device to use during class or throughout the school year. We also need to make sure that the school district or whoever is, administering the devices is able to push the apps to those devices. The ways that we are able to manage that is through two different mechanisms, either through Apple School or Apple Business Manager, or alternatively, if you use Android devices, either having a managed Play Store or Play for Work account. And then finally, schools or districts must meet community eligibility provision and or Title I eligibility requirements. Those eligibility requirements are defined federally, but basically there's three different ways to apply to this program. A district can apply if the district as a whole is eligible for the community eligibility provision. That's where at least 40% or more of students are eligible for free school meals without a household application. If districts have some schools that are eligible, that they think are eligible, and some schools that are not, districts can apply on behalf of multiple schools. And again, the schools may be eligible for CEP and or Title I, but the district may not be. The district can still apply on behalf of those schools, and we can push apps to those eligible schools. Individual schools are also welcome to apply. And again, for that, they must either be CEP eligible or Title I school. If you are uncertain about your eligibility, I know that there are generally state level listings of this because it is generally a state level kind of designation. So that should be something you should be able to get from your administrators. And while at this point, I don't know if we're going to, how should I say it? Basically, if your school or district is eligible, you will be accepted into the program up until we reach a certain cap. So right now we're looking at supporting approximately 100 institutions, institution being districts or schools, depending upon how people are applying. So do get your application in earlier rather than later, because once we hit the cap, we might have to put you on a waiting list, potentially for the next year if this program gets extended. And then there's a little bit with regards to reporting that I do want to make sure that everyone is aware of. This is detailed very clearly in the program description and also in the application. And that is that, our supporter, Verizon, does want to know the impact of this program, and so do we. So we ask participants, once they're accepted, to complete both a pre-survey and then a mid and a final survey. And I'm able to go through all those details. Everything is linked in the program description, but I will hold off from doing that until we get to the Q&A if people would like me to do that. Basically, the pre-survey will ask a bit about how many districts, or which district, how many schools will be participating, what is the demographics of the student populations at those eligible schools or across the district. What kind of technology do you use, including what account numbers do you have for Apple or Android management services? And then we also have a very simple agreement that basically says we give you access to the license for 1 academic year. Then we have the mid and final survey, and for that we ask a bit about how many how many people use the simulation, or rather how many students got access, how many teachers got access to the apps. And then we do ask for some evidence of impact, which could be just as simple as, perhaps an email from a teacher or from a parent or a student who benefited from using the app. It could be photographs, either, non-identified or with permission, parental permission or whatnot. But we ask for some small evidence of impact, or as large as you want to make it for us. And that always helps us out. So finally, with regards to timeline, the application deadline is May 5th for full consideration. After that, we will just continue to accept on a rolling basis until we have basically reached our cap, which, as I mentioned, we're estimating to be about 100 institutions. It will be at least 100 institutions. We may go higher depending upon if the applicants that come in are very high needs, very large programs or smaller programs. So we will accept at least 100. By mid-May, we will give initial notices of acceptance, and we will provide information about how to push the apps to your devices. By the end of late May, we will need that pre-survey back that I mentioned. Starting in August and then continuing for about 10 months, we will have that optional teacher professional development. So we'll be sharing with eligible school districts and schools the calendar of opportunities, and then teachers can individually choose to register for those opportunities. Mid-survey in January, and I think there's a typo on here. It says January 2024 post-survey. That's actually supposed to be June 2024. So I apologize for that error there. So end of academic year, basically. And with regards to the application, again, that application is linked in the program description that I've mentioned. Basically, we ask for contact information. We ask for a statement of eligibility, basically meaning, do you declare that your district and or the schools that are applying are eligible for this program? We do verify that, but we ask you to verify it first. And we ask a bit about the technology ecosystem. So what kinds of devices are you giving students? What kind of need do your students have as well? So, if there happens to be any information about internet reliability at school and or at home, that's something that's very helpful for us to know. We ask you to estimate the school, student, and teacher reach, so how many people may benefit from this program. We ask a bit about the potential need for teacher professional development, just so that we can get a sense of if that's something that's interesting and desired by your teachers. We ask a bit about school and district demographics, and finally, a statement about motivation and commitment. It's optional, but we do provide an opportunity within the application for you to upload a document, which might include something like a statement from a principal or a superintendent, explaining, how this would benefit the teachers and students, or, anything else related to how it might be aligned with the strategic plan. One thing that's very important to know here is that this application should be completed by an individual who's responsible for IT decision-making and or integration. I've mentioned before, we typically work with teachers, and we love to to have them proactively involved in this decision making. For this specific application, however, it is critical that that contact person be the individual, or be somebody associated with the individual who would actually do the technological deployment. That might be a teacher, it may not be. So work together. That's the most important thing. And then coming to a close here, with regards to notification and acceptance, it's at that time that we would need the that we would provide you with a program ID number, which we would then use in order to ultimately push the apps to you. We'd provide the pre-survey reporting metrics, a document to you to complete. We would ask for your Apple and or Google IDs, and then we would ask you to review and accept the end user license agreement. All of this information, again, is in the program description. We've got plenty of links in there in case you want to know, what do these things look like? How do I get the Apple or Google IDs, etc. So that's basically it. I've gone a little bit over the time I wanted to go over, but and I know that there's lots of questions. So I'm going to actually turn it over first to Kathy Carter. Did you see any? I know there's lots of questions that have popped in the chat. What should we address first?
Oliver and I have been sort of trying our best to mediate that. So if we don't get a question or say a question that was in the chat, please do either type it again or feel free to do this. One of the first question was, what's the advantage of having the app over using the free version on the website? And I have to apologize, since I've been monitoring the chat, I have not been you may have already covered this, Rebecca. So
yeah, no worries. Yeah, I'll just go back to it real quickly. So the primary benefit is easier and offline access. So frankly, if you are at a school where you've got regular internet connection, your students have devices that they take home and they're able to get also online at home, the app may not be necessary. However, like I mentioned, there are cases where we've got, children living, in rural areas, or they don't have home internet access, yet they have a school issued device. Having the app allows them to do activities without that internet access. So that's one benefit. The second benefit is that the teacher doesn't have to pull a URL or create a QR code in order to direct students to doing a PhET activity in class or with homework. So it's a matter of convenience and offline accessibility. Those are the two primary ones.
Great. And another question, a couple times, the people are wondering if there's a cost aligned with the app at the close of the 23-24 school year.
So this program gives you access for 1 year. I believe the end date that we're putting on it is June 2024. Is that correct, Oliver?
I think it's the end of June. Yeah. You're muted.
Hey,
Oliver.
sorry, that's right. June 30th.
Yeah, June 30th. So at the end of that, there's two possibilities of what might happen. Either number one, you just don't have the license to use the app anymore, in which case, then that we could talk about the possibility of doing a quote just like we currently do now, or you just don't use the app anymore. The thing that we're very, very hopeful for, however, is that Verizon might consider the possibility of renewing this program, in which case we might be able to do an extension for a following year. So this is a 1 year program. There is no financial obligation on behalf of any school, district, teacher, or student to participate during that first academic year. And there's no obligation to continue participating in it, either paid or through an extension of the program that second year. Does that answer that question clearly?
I hope so. And then somebody just typed, if they do renew, will we need to reapply?
I do suspect that we would need to have some kind of a reapplication process, but I am pretty sure that we would prioritize individuals, schools and districts in the program. We want continuity, right? So I can't make promises about things without knowing, if the donor might have different priorities, but my personal priority would be for continuity within a program, particularly for a school that has demonstrated need and also has demonstrated impact, right? That they've benefited from the program.
Excellent. Another question is related to whether the teacher PD is optional.
Yes, yes, the teacher professional development is entirely optional. Basically, so we're going to have 4 different kind of strands that teachers can get involved in. Quarterly, we'll have just a 1 to 2 hour intro to PhET simulations webinar. We'll have, I think every month, we've got some dedicated office hours for about 3 hours during a week. It's like over a lunch period kind of a thing where people can drop in if they have specific questions or are looking for pedagogical support. The third one is we'll be having specialized webinars. We'll be sending out an email or communication to teachers who've registered to participate who might express interest. For example, next month I'm teaching about optics. What great simulations do you have within PhET to teach about optics, and what activities would you recommend? So we're planning on doing kind of not what I'd call spur of the moment, but planned specialized webinars / workshops that address teacher needs. And then the final one, throughout the entire academic year, teachers will have the opportunity to participate in a Coursera course, which lasts about 45 hours in total, but can be done across the course of an entire school year. And during that course, they will learn about, first of all, PhET simulations in general, how to access them, but then also how to create activities using evidence-based practices around those simulations. None of those are required, but teachers are all welcome to do it. This program basically means that in each of those strands, the only teachers for whom it will be open to are teachers at those participating schools. So it's basically like a specialized facilitation cohort experience for those teachers. Nobody is required to do that. And school districts, we will be passing along the information about what those activities are, when they will be happening. School districts can make that decision about how to share that information with teachers, and then teachers voluntarily sign up with us.
All right. Some other questions is, let's see. I can probably answer this one. This is currently we use PhET in middle and high school. Do these simulations cater to elementary schools as well? I will say yes. We have we have 106 HTML5 simulations, 46 of which are math. And of those, there are several in the elementaries. You can filter on the webpage with elementary. And so, yes, there's definitely elementary, middle, high, and college. We just published our calculus sim yesterday. It's very exciting. A question about what if some of the schools in the district are eligible, but some are not? What to do?
Sure. So in that case, if you look at the application form, then you would select the second option, which is applying as a district, some schools eligible. So, I recognize that it's probably at the district level that, people are pushing apps. Basically, we provide licenses to apps at the eligible schools only. So you are eligible to apply in that case.
There's also a question about student privacy and like individual student data versus a conglomerated overview. Yeah. Can you address that, please?
Yes. So first of all, PhET simulations do not, never have, and I think probably never will collect personally identifying information from students. Actually, I'm going to punt this one over to you, Oliver, because you are our analytics person. Would you like to answer that?
Yeah, I've seen this question come up a couple times. I think I answered the question from Rob specifically in the chat. But yeah, as Rebecca was saying, no personal or FERPA student data is collected on our website or our mobile apps. We are in the in the midst of a long-term project to update a PhET specific privacy policy, but I do have specific Android and iOS app privacy policies, and I'm going to grab those links and put those in the chat. But hopefully that clears up any concerns around any collection of student data. There is none.
And I do want to clarify here, when we are talking about the Google IDs or the Apple IDs, we are talking about the district or the school level administrative account ID. We are not talking about individual student IDs for any of those accounts.
That's just to clarify, that's an organizational identifier that your district or school will use within your management platform, be it Apple or Google. This is not associated with a person.
Yeah.
Yeah. So people are curious, what if they fill out the application and accidentally click an incorrect box? One of the things that, because of the way that the survey is set up, is if there's a certain type of thing in the survey page, the back button is disabled and there's nothing we can really do about that. Sorry. So if you do accidentally click an incorrect button, I mean, if there are a lot of them, perhaps start over, but if there's only one, just go ahead and hit submit. And if you need to, just send us an email at PhET for Schools. I'll type it in the chat. PhET for Schools. Yeah. I think those are on the wrong keys. At colorado.edu, and you can, clarify, send that to the wrong thing. Hopefully that answers your question there. Let's see. People are curious how they can share the recording with interested parties.
So once this webinar is done, I will upload to YouTube, grab a link, and I will probably just send a direct email to folks from PhET for Schools at Colorado to everyone who's registered, and you would be more than welcome to directly share that link.
And what about the slides for this presentation?
Oh, also, yeah, well, I'll include the slides, I'll include the link. We'll make sure we have all the important stuff in there, including the program description. Yeah.
I think what we'll also do is curate a Q&A from this session and include that as well.
Yeah.
That will be going towards. Let's see. This question just came in recently about whether the teacher PD sessions or office hours are available even if acceptance is not granted.
Possibly. It depends upon how much we're talking, how much we're talking about. So we do, at this point, most of my work personally is working in Africa and Latin America. We will soon be hiring on another individual actually to help out with this program. It's possible. I would just ask you to directly send an email to phetforschools@colorado.edu. Tell us what you're looking for. You were always happy to do, little intro sessions or an office hour for groups of teachers within reason, right? So just drop us an email and that'd be great.
Okay, let's see. I think we answered most of the general questions. There are some specific ones, but
yeah, and I see Oliver's also addressed a few questions about privacy agreements, et cetera, et cetera. If anybody wants to raise their hand as well and ask a question verbally, if that's easier to do, you're more than welcome to do that.
I had a Title I question in there.
sorry.
Let's take a look. Yeah, and I also recognize if folks need to go or if you've had your questions answered, don't hesitate to drop off. We totally understand. We're not going to feel badly about that. Lydia, was that you who asked that question? Who was it who just spoke up? Sorry, no, not Lydia.
Linda Caparelli.
Linda, okay.
Because I already filled out the application, but then I'm counting up my Title I schools and I'm seeing like our autistic program, which services like poor and underprivileged kids. And then the Delaware School for the Deaf. And then there's like networks. Those kids are like severely Title I but they have an alternate funding source. So they're not considered Title I. Because they're in your special programs, but it's still, they're still like poor, being fed and being supported financially. But a lot of those programs like interact between my district and the state. And so I couldn't include them in how many of your schools are Title I. I already put in the application and I realized I couldn't go back. So
Got it. That's really great information to know. And what I would suggest, if you didn't put that in the application, just drop us a note at the PhET for Schools, and I'll be sure to append that information. There's a possibility we might just need to go, if we decide, just to accept you to the program, we might just need to go to Verizon and just ask them if they felt that was okay. And if they say yes, that's great. So give us the information and we'll make the request.
yeah, because everybody's like, oh, Title I, but we don't
Right.
think about these kids who are in wheelchairs and autistic coming from poor families, but they're funded differently. And so they're not considered Title I.
Right. No, I totally understand. And I appreciate that. The intent behind the CEP and Title I is to support those students and teachers that are in the most dire situations, right? So I think it totally makes sense what you're saying. I don't expect that we're going to have a difficulty with that. I can't make promises, but just give us that information and we'll definitely address that. Okay.
Okay, thanks so much.
Yeah.
Same thing is at my school also. The students come from different school districts, and so some school, it is an online program, and we work with like 12 or 16 different school districts. And then students come from different districts, and then some schools they are part of Title I, and some are not.
Yeah, so again, I'm sure there's so much diversity in our educational systems. I'm sure that Title I and CEP don't cover everything. Please go ahead and include that information in the application, as well as, whatever evidence you have that these students are originating from Title I schools, and we'll see what we can do.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
There's a question that just came in about if there's intention of PhET to transition to a monetized platform on the web, like the app download.
Not that I'm aware of. We've not done it for 20 years. Yeah, Oliver's also shaking his head. I personally have always worked for nonprofits. That's my mission. That's why I'm still with PhET, and want to be for a long, long time. So I do not see that happening. I think the only conversations we've ever had about that, the answer's always been no. We do have a commercial product called PhET.io, which you may or may not be familiar with, which is geared more towards assessments and towards research. It's not standard use. Our goal is to make sure that students and teachers can learn math and science, effectively, efficiently, and at no cost to them. So I hope that answers your question.
Somebody asked if our school is part of a Verizon pilot program for iPads. Do we need to apply for this program?
Yes, please do apply. Please also make sure that you note that you're part of that Verizon program, because I think that's a benefit. Verizon would, be pleased again to see continuity and continued engagement of all their partners. So yes, please do apply. Please make sure you note that.
All right.
The link to the privacy policy, Oliver or Kathy, maybe Oliver, if you're able to just grab that, would you mind?
Yeah, we'll have two.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Yeah, one for iOS and one for Android.
Great. Do we have any other questions? Let's see.
Well, one may have escaped me in the chat, so feel free to pop on your mic if we
Mhm.
missed one.
Yeah.
Yes, I logged in halfway through the meeting. I logged in really late. When is the recording for this meeting going to be made available?
Probably within a few hours. I just need to get it up on YouTube, and then it's got to do all of its, like, I don't know what they call it, but it has to get refined and all that stuff. So that generally will take a couple of hours, but I will be sending an email from PhET for Schools, thanking people for having attended. And then I will include the link to the slides, the link to the recording, and all the other relevant pieces, the application and such.
Okay, thank you.
Yep, you're quite welcome.
And then somebody is hoping we can post a link to the application here in the chat.
Perfect. It's probably best to, maybe we could give them the program description. The application is right in there, but then at least that way you get the full context.
Yep. Sounds good.
And yeah, just a kind of a final reminder, we'll stick around for a few more minutes for any additional questions, but deadline for full consideration is May 5th. So we will not start reviewing and making decisions until May 5th. If at that time we still haven't selected our minimum of 100 institutions or applications that we accept, at that point we'll keep the application open and we will review and accept on a rolling basis. If you have any questions, drop us an email at phetforschools@colorado.edu, and we'll get back to you as soon as possible. And I believe that is it. Do we have any final questions? I don't see. Let's see.
Yeah, I'm getting the link to the application.
Perfect. Thank you, Kathy.
Right now, just want to make sure I grab the right one.
Okay. Well, if there are no additional questions, I'll go ahead and stop the recording. And